Very excited to have our next guest on. He's starting to become, I mean, I don't know how many times he's been on the show, but every time is just pure fire. The gnome is to love him, the hilarious, the intelligent, got great, like just facial features. I mean, the guy's just
birthing hips.
He's truly amazing. Jay Dyer, everybody. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing great, Sam and company. How are you guys?
One of the best follows on Twitter by far. I love your Twitter. I love following it, and you're crushing it, Jay. For those who are new to Tinfoil Hat, and haven't seen your many appearances on the show, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at jaysanalysis.com. You can find me on Twitter under my name, Jay Dyer, Instagram, YouTube, all the same outlets as everybody else. And I cover everything from geopolitics to philosophy to film to theology. I've been written for the Sam Hyde Show this whole first season that we put out, which is a great comedy show that you should check out. And I host the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show most Fridays, although that's been a little bit rocky of late due to legal issues with Alex. But I think as we go forward into the future, when he sets up the Alex Jones Network, I'll continue hosting there as well. So you can find me on that and all of these great podcasts like your own.
I love it, dude. You're crushing it. You're made for the modern day. You're debating everybody. You're calling out. It's like you're walking down the street going, "Who wants a fight? Does anybody want to fight? Yeah. I'll fight anybody right now." And then, people come up and you kick their asses. You recently were on Alex Jones, and it was a really incredible episode because you guys, started to dive deep into the Hitler psyop, and I loved it. And it's good to see Alex Jones going there because the whole thing was he had a blind spot for things like that. Again, when you're at that level, it's a little different game than I think some people understand. You're literally dealing with bazillions of idiots who just who hate their life and just want to dump on you. The greatest example of I think the best evidence for Hitler being a psyop is Albert Pike's famous quote, which is, "When they need a hero, we will supply them." And that totally fits what Hitler, the whole Hitler situation and what they represented. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. Where do you want to begin?
Well, one thing I'll say is that it's important to avoid dialectics here because people kind of assume that, well, you're either pro-Zionist or you're pro-Hitler, right? Like as if there's these only two options. And I mean, in my view, they're both fake and gay. I can, in a nuanced way, reject both these positions and have a different option. And that's because I put a lot of time into studying this from a historical perspective. I'm not a World War II historian. I do have a degree in history. So there's a great book called Tragedy and Hope, which is written from the vantage point of the establishment. So Carroll Quigley was Bill Clinton's mentor. He's writing, as he notes, from the Council on Foreign Relations archives when he writes this book.
Tabs. Look at all those.
It's kind of like, yeah, right, yeah. Everybody always jokes that, like, I don't actually read the book. It's just fake. I just stick tabs in it to look like I'm smart. But no, I really did read this book. I did a lecture on it 10 years ago. We did 8 lectures through the whole text because it's so important. Richard Grove basically created an entire website called Tragedy and Hope on the basis of this book because it's so important. And you got Bill Clinton's mentor, Carroll Quigley, writing from the vantage point of the establishment. And every time I talk about this book, all of these Hitler retards act like I'm citing the book as if he's good and a good dude, and I'm like on the side of the liberal, neoliberal establishment. No, I'm saying this book admits that Hitler was goaded into going into Poland, going into Czechoslovakia, and I'll show you some of the quotes. His early rise was funded by the Bank of England and the Cologne Bank, and that was to get him into the war. So we shouldn't be so naive as to think, oh, Hitler was just this total mind control British intelligence agent. Rather, there was a secret deal going on with the British establishment to tell Hitler, go into Poland, go into Czechoslovakia, take the $3 billion of Czech gold. We will not oppose you, but we're going to have a public policy that we're against you. But trust us, we will allow you to do these things. We actually are on your side. So there's the double cross that's what happened with Hitler, according to Quigley. And he's got tons and tons of information about the secret meetings between Ribbentrop and the British elites and how they continued to say, oh, don't worry, keep going, we're on your side. Then, boom, they flip and get America into the war, and they go against Hitler. So there was a strategy to have World War II. And the other thing that's really contentious that people don't talk about that I think makes perfect sense, and there's quite a few books written on this, Hitler was necessary for the recognition and establishment of the nation state of Israel. If you'd not had World War II, if you'd not had the Havara agreement between the Nazis and the Zionists, and the migration of so many Jews to Palestine, which was by design going all the way back to the 1860s in the Rothschild biographies and according to Moses Hess, that's what lays the groundwork for the recognition of the nation state of Israel by the UN in 1948. So in a way, like, you needed this figure, as you said, Sam, this villain, to have where we are now. So this is what enrages the Hitler people when you talk about this, all the fake neo-Nazis on Twitter. But at the same time, that doesn't make me a fan of the Rothschilds and the Zionists. Like, I can criticize that whole, Gaza, project to basically genocide people. Some of whom, not the majority, but some of them are actually Orthodox Christians. So, no, it's a very nuanced position, and this whole thing thrives on meme warfare and not being nuanced.
It's a very in-depth conversation that's very dangerous because both sides want Hitler to be this kind of mythical creature.
Yes.
Like, their whole existence is built on Hitler good guy, Hitler bad guy.
Yes.
And they can't come to grips with it that Hitler is just like almost all these guys. Like, as I listen to you talk about how they goaded him into going into these other countries, that's the exact same game plan they did with Saddam.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, go in there, dude. Go into Kuwait. Yeah, dude, we totally got your back, man. Go to Kuwait, do what you got to do. And then when he does it, they pound him.
Well, and the thing that people don't acknowledge when they research this history, especially, like, you don't see it in a lot of history books, is, or at least not the way it's taught, is that before Britain and France declared war on Germany, they had only retaken German territory with German-speaking people. And then France and England declared war on them. And then they invaded France. Now, they had plans for France, obviously, going around the Maginot Line. But those, I mean, in Poland, they took Danzig. Those were Germans.
Well, it
there.
also goes deeper, Johnny, because the Polish were ethnically cleansing Germans in Poland.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That Danzig those were German people. And then the Sudetenland, those Sudeten Germans in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah,
so,
and nobody wants to take a look at any of that because it doesn't fit a narrative.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how deep do we go with this? We've had past guests on. There's the discussion of Hitler being a Rothschild. The Hitler dick riders will tell you, oh, that was his therapist. It was made up. We've had guests come on and say that's not actually true. It was his niece that is the one that told everybody that he was a Rothschild because he was essaying her and she wanted not to be with him anymore, and then she turns up dead. And
yeah, I mean, no, you're right. There does seem to be like credible claims about the PDF stuff. I don't know about the whole Rothschild stuff. I'm aware of that theory, but I just kind of go with like what is documented in the CFR archives, which people say, oh, well, that could all be lies and deception. Well, why would Quigley, who's a believer in the establishment, put out information that damages the establishment? Like, it doesn't make any sense from that vantage point, because this book wasn't written to be read by the masses. It was a book written for kind of the political class, the CIA level people. It was given out to CIA section chiefs in the Cold War. So it's not a book written for the masses. But I'll start by mentioning on page 1059, Quigley says that the British Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was the World Petroleum Cartel sort of, controlling entity. Together with the American government and the Iranian elite, They all combined to crush Mossadegh. The chief effort came from the American Secret Intelligence Agency, newly established as the CIA after the OSS a few years earlier. Dulles, a former director of Schroeder Bank in New York, was an old associate of Frank Tiark's and was a partner in Schroeder Bank in London in 1902. He was then a director of the Bank of England from 1912 to 1945, as well as Lazard Brothers Bank, and working at listen to this, Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. It will be recalled that Schroeder Bank in Cologne helped arrange Hitler's accession to power as chancellor in 1933. So you have a French bank helping to bring Hitler to power early on in 1933. That's just the beginning. If you go to Germany, as you guys all know, in the 1930s, from 31 to 33, there were very powerful Jewish banking interests in Germany that were involved in the decline of the German economy and, of course, German morals. So there were aspects to what Hitler was criticizing that were legitimate criticisms, but this idea that, like, oh, it was all organic. He just rose to power because he was such a popular speaker and figure and all this kind of stuff. What they don't talk about is what's called the secret 7-point deal. So there's a 7-point plan early on that the British made with Hitler, that Hitler would be supported because he would be a bulwark against communism. This is what they're telling Hitler secretly. They're telling the public something totally different to the British elite. There would be a 4-power pact between Britain, France, Italy, and Germany to exclude Russian influence in Europe. Britain had no objection to Germany acquiring Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Danzig. This is point 3 of the 7-point plan. Germany, in this deal, must not use force to achieve its aims in Europe, as this would precipitate war. Britain would agree to certain. It says they would not allow for the bombing of Britain, which, as we know, Hitler didn't want to bomb the UK. And then there's a couple more points about an open door policy of trade. And this then led to Hitler doing what he did after being promised that the British elite secretly supported him. And then there were continual meetings with Ribbentrop and the round table elites. And this is mentioned by Quigley on page 621. So this idea that, either that he was this heroic figure, or that he was not supported by the establishment, or that he was this world's ultimate villain, all of that's not true. And the truth is something more nuanced, as we're talking about, that the UK elites wanted this war. And one reason they wanted this war, it's not the only reason, but one reason they wanted it was because the factions of the British elite, you had the Zionist faction and you had the Arabophile faction. So the British spies that we talked about last time I was on with you, people like T.E. Lawrence, people like Gertrude Bell, people like St. John Philby, who became a Muslim, those guys and girls, they were all super pro-Arab and they liked Islam. There's another faction of the British elite, though, like Cecil Rhodes, Rothschild, etc. They were very rabidly pro-Zionist. This is obviously the Jewish faction of the British elite. And the Rothschilds have been utilizing the British Empire for a long time, kind of for a lot of their purposes. For example, the taking of the Suez Canal, according to Quigley, that was done at the behest of the Rothschilds. Rothschilds put money into Cecil Rhodes and all of his diamond, slave farms in Africa. So that's all one side of this power structure. Well, obviously, the Rothschilds wanted the establishment of a Jewish homeland to replace the Palestinian state that already existed in Israel. And that's exactly what they got out of this World War II scenario. That's not all they wanted. Eventually, there's a plan for global governance and a Fabian socialist governance throughout the world. And people say, well, is it the Fabians or is it the Jews? Dude, it's the same plan, because Moses Hess, in his book, Rome and Jerusalem, says, we will establish Jerusalem and Israel as a world socialist hub to be the thing that saves the world through socialism. That's the same plan as the Fabian socialists in Britain. It's just the Fabian socialists in Britain are atheists. They don't care about the nation state of Israel. So they're just debating basically about where the center of world socialism will be. And that's why Moses Hess, Chaim Weizmann, Theodor Herzl, they're all believers in socialism. They're not really theists. They're more like pantheists or New Agers, kind of. But they believe that world socialism will be the answer out of the dialectical conflicts of World War I and World War II that will bring about the global governance.
Wow.
It's in Moses Hess's book. He actually says this.
That's actually insanity, and it's so crazy.
This is before Albert Pike, by the way, writing all the Albert Pike stuff. Let me grab that Moses Hess book.
Okay, go grab it. Which kind of fits in right now to what happened in New York City, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Islam is not like out of the span of this. This is Moses Hess's book, Revival of Israel. And before there was any political Zionist movement, he wrote this book in 1862, and it's considered prophetic, right? It was ignored until 1902, but he's the guy that influences Theodor Herzl. You wouldn't have Theodor Herzl without Moses Hess, and Moses Hess is the founder of utopian socialism. So when he writes this book, he says, there are many rabbis presently interested in utilizing Freemasonry, this is page 114, as a means to amalgamate all the religions into one religion. Through this, then, we will have a global government. This is page 115. You said it right here.
So crazy, dude. It's so crazy. Wow.
Then he goes on to say later on, this is 1862. He says, we are going to build a new third temple. We're going to have a Jewish homeland, and the Rothschilds are behind this. Ooh. 1862, way before Zionism, right here.
Wow. I'm writing this.
So this idea that like all of this is, all coming out of 1900s is not true. It was planned way before that. By the way, my publisher that just published my third Hollywood book. So we got,
let's see it. Nice.
1,000 pages now on Hollywood, mind control, and all that. They just put out a book. I didn't even know this was coming out, but it just now came out. 2 World Wars and Hitler, and it's about everything I'm talking about right now. Who funded Hitler's rise, the British elite goading him into this.
What is the book's name?
Sorry, it's called 2 World Wars and Hitler.
And Hitler, okay.
By McGregor and O'Dowd. And basically the whole book is just what we're talking about, which is, Anthony Sutton wrote a trilogy a long time ago about Wall Street funding Bolsheviks and Hitler. So both sides of that get funded. And it's not all the same people, but the point is that wealthy people make money from war. War is a racket.
There's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also some geopolitical maneuvering going on because Israel is the quickest route to get goods from Africa and Asia into Europe. So if you control that route, which is whether you're in the Khazarians or not and what the Khazarians are, I can hear Adam Green screaming right now, but whatever you believe in that, okay, they used to control trade routes. They controlled parts of the Silk Road, and that's how they made their money. And again, when you look at all these canals they want to put right through Gaza, it totally fit, it's so crazy to watch Egypt basically sign their own suicide note, because what the Israelis want to do is create a two-way canal, Suez Canal that's in Egypt, right? That is a one-way canal. So they have to do one way this way, one way that way. And this new canal that Israel wants to put in would be a two-way canal, which would allow goods to move even quicker. And that's why they want to control that shit. And I think that was the plan from the jump, was to control
absolutely.
This area.
See if you can read this, just the sentence right here where my fingers are. Can you guys read that?
Not. I see Egypt. That's all I see. Could you read it to us? Because I'm illiterate and he speaks a second language.
Johnny, can you see it? Can you read it?
Disrael's purchase with Rothschild money of 176 basically thousand. I can't see that word. Of the Suez Canal.
Something of Egypt, yeah.
I can't see what that is. Something of Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just read this. It says
It's so hard to see.
Benjamin Disraeli, the British Prime Minister, purchased with Rothschild money the Suez Canal in 1875.
That was a good buy.
That's a great buy.
Good value.
Well, it's this. Technically, it's the stock, but basically, yeah. There. So the point is that Disraeli was the first Jewish prime minister of Britain, but he's working as an operative of the Rothschilds, admittedly, according to Quigley. And they were behind the Suez Canal.
That's incredible.
And this is not a conspiracy text. Again, people have to understand this is not a book by some unknown, obscure theoretician. This is a guy who is at the top of the CFR level, archivist, historian. He's a military historian, big geopolitical strategist, wrote many, many books. And he's basically admitting most of what the conspiracy theorists have said, all over the place for the last 100 years. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this. I mean, it's not just the 7-point strategy, but they're basically setting up a banking system and structure, which is the overall plan. It's called the Paribas system, and this is mentioned on page 525. All that is the Rothschild banking system. And then anyone who would go against this, they would say, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic." So this is actually an old trick to do this, where you play a victim. And you can get a lot done under pretending like, everyone is being mean to you, when ultimately you have a very cunning, long-term
I couldn't
game plan.
agree more, dude. That was the most real shit. That's so I'm in this kind of place right now, comedically. Leonardo Joni goes way harder than I do. Okay, and that's why she's great. But because I love everybody, there's no group I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I do too.
Ideologies I have a real problem with, but people I like. And I think if you look at a group of people, the base, the middle, they tend to be like chill people. It's the people at the top that act like fools, and then the base and the middle have to defend them at all costs because they think it reflects on them. And I've been saying this forever. It's like, if you want to live in a proper society, you have to get rid of political correctness. You have to, because political correctness is a shield that allows idiots to act like fools. Okay, and we've seen that in the 80s when we saw a ramp up in political correctness, particularly white people to black people, and this kind of thing where any discussion by white people about black people instantly falls under racism. You can't discuss it at all. And what happens is when you create this kind of bubble that shields criticism, people start to they just start to change because there's no outside influence. There's nobody outside them going, "Hey, dude, that's stupid. Don't do that." And then it's just a bunch of people. It's like a friend of mine. I've told the story before. He was going to college. My friend Marcus. There's like 8 of us in this chat from high school, and Marcus is the only black guy. And he was going to play football. And he had a choice between going to Washington University or this historically black college. And his father was like, "Don't go to who's black, said, don't go to historically black college because that's not real life. That you're going to be living with all these different kind of people. You got to learn how to live with them and how to interact with them. But if you go to a historically black college, and I'm not saying anything about the education, it's probably excellent, but you just have the same there. It's all the same people. There's no outside dissent going, that doesn't make any sense. You need outside influence to correct behavior. It's like men act in certain ways because women reward and punish behavior. You have to have that. But what we saw through political correctness were these bubbles being put on all these different groups where outside people couldn't criticize them. And then they just got to the extreme. And it's not good. It's not good for everybody. Then you look at the other way around where blacks, Hispanics, gays, women could all criticize white guys. And look what happened to white guys. They're not overtly racist like they used to be. They're more conscious of people and their feelings, and because they had outside influences coming in and telling you, "Hey, you can't act like that." This is the same thing. This is my whole point in comedy right now. It's like, You can't have a group, especially as powerful as particular groups that are positioned in every point of power, and also treat them like a marginalized group and a protected class. You can't have that. You have to have open discussion about what is going on. And I think this is very important because it goes back, long story, to get back to what Jason said, which is like, or Jay, is Jason offensive to you, by the way? My brother.
No, that's my legal name.
Okay,
so
okay. I love your legal Christian name. So you have to have this, because what they do, just like Jay said, is you create anti-Semitism as a shield.
Are you Samuel or
I'll go by Samuel.
Are you Samael? Samuel.
I'm just happy you call my name at all. So you can't have that. And that's done on purpose to allow people to act without criticism. And you cannot have that. You have to have open dialogue. It's the only way you get people back on track to living civil with each other.
It's actually turning into beyond just dialogue. It's becoming criminal activity. So political correctness is now actually allowing for and covering up crimes, and crimes against white people, crimes against other, minorities. Remember when all the Asians were getting punched? And if you talked about it, you're racist because you can't say that black people are committing these crimes and punching.
Like, you just see a black guy clock an Asian grandma, and they're like, why is this white hate so prevalent, dude?
Right. I mean, it's covering up for criminal activity, but we could probably figure out a way for you to rise up in the ranks of the oppression Olympics if we could either class you as the minority of an Armenian or guys named Sam. And if you collectivize all the guys named Sam and say that you're being oppressed as, the guys named Sam don't get jobs, they don't get hired.
Yeah. I'm trying to put out that I'm gay, just putting it out there, and then so Netflix will give me a special. I'm like, I'm a minority, I'm gay, put it out there, let me have a special, and I'll thrive.
You don't think they'll make you prove it?
I just got to say, dude, that's what AI is for. That's good, actually. Here's my OnlyFans of me getting weird.
Gay eye
is going to be huge. But you're totally right. This is all, so the question that I have for you, Jay, is when we talk about the Rothschilds, are we talking about the Jays, or are we talking about when we study them? And if there's someone to talk to about this, it's you. When you study their symbolism,
because I'm a Jewish Rothschild.
Yeah. Well, you study the occult, right? So like you would know this, and if I'm wrong, I'm fine with being wrong. But is it really Abrahamic religions, or is it really much beyond that? And it's into the dark arts and the occult and all that stuff. And they kind of wear these religions as masks so they can walk amongst us.
So I think with the Rothschilds, it's hard to say to what degree each specific, because you have a dynasty of people in different, European countries and the U.S. as well. And I mean, you could have a lot of variation amongst the people, some taking the religion seriously, some people not, some people getting into the occult side of it. For example, in the case of the main ideologue of Zionism on the side of the Rothschilds, you have Edmund, who is the French side of it. And Edmund seemed to be, as far as I could tell from the biographers that I've read, more of a not politically minded, but more of a religiously minded Jewish guy. So I think for him, he really wanted to try. I'm not saying he's good. I'm just saying he wanted to purchase sites in Israel for Jewish pilgrims. He wasn't even political, and it was actually a lot of arguments and debates that he had with people like Moses Hess and Chaim Weizmann, who were the more politically minded Zionists. They actually thought that it was bad for the family if they got involved in this contentious political issue, and they didn't want to make all the Arabs mad. So at first they were not really for this. And that's why Edmund's decision was to just, at the late 1800s, just purchase sections of land in Israel from a powerful Turkish sultan, because a lot of that was under Ottoman control. And so you can't even say that it's like all Rothschild's fault if you wanted to pick bad guys, because, there's a Turkish sultan who's selling out the Palestinians by selling this land to the Rothschilds. So there's a lot of, nefarious figures on all sides. But to make a quicker answer for your question, yeah, I think that there were probably elements of that family that were into the Sabbatian type of Judaism that was more openly satanic. Kabbalism has always been a side of Judaism that actually inverts good and evil, and it's more of Gnosticism, where it's like, God is good and evil at the same time. And then you've got more openly kind of, vicious things in the Talmud about, Christians are the worst, Jesus is boiling in excrement, all that kind of stuff. So the thing with Judaism is that it's less codified in terms of ideology than people think, because the Talmud kind of allows you to construct it however you want. And within Judaism, if I had an issue like, oh, should I, put my pee-pee in the poo-poo, and I go ask my rabbi, if my rabbi says yes, then in Judaism, you can do it. And you don't go and ask other rabbis to see if that rabbi was right.
You don't look for a second opinion.
Exactly. You just go by whatever your local rabbi says. So
That's
I can put the pee-pee in the poo-poo because the rabbi told me so. So it's very relativistic, but at the same time, it's also very it's kind of the prototype, in my view, of a secret society religion. So I view it kind of more like organized crime or a cult. And that's why if you look at the way the really strict Haredi and the, Chabad and these groups operate, like it's a really weird thing where you trick God, what I'm talking about, with like the light switches.
Yeah, like
So
they have, there are some buildings here that have elevators on Friday that stop on every floor on the Sabbath because they can't interact with the elevator, so they just get in and wait for it to go ding, 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 all the way.
So you trick God by I can't go outside on the Sabbath and walk too many steps. So if I put a string around the neighborhood, then it's indoors. It's just retarded. So that's a cult, dude. That's like a,
or you have
cult.
the Shabbos goy, like you have a non-Jew to do all these little light switches and stuff for you that specifically for that, to trick God.
Crazy, dude.
Isn't
and
that
the God's like, whoa, hey,
It's the thing. It goes right back to the Pharisees, though. It's that same thing where they were.
It's the Pharisee Talmudic, absolutely. That's the Talmud is the codification of that, Pharisaical tradition, absolutely.
Can I ask you, what's the theological underpinning for the thing with the rabbis? Is it because he is the representative of God on earth? Is it like the kind of akin to Catholicism in that way, or is there some other?
I mean, not well. So basically, when the Jews were in the land back in the Old Testament, it was difficult for everybody to go to the temple, right? So what happened was Ezra, if you read in the Bible, there's a book of Ezra. Yeah. Ezra came up with the idea to set up a synagogue system where throughout the land of Israel, you would have local places of worship to, read the text and do the prayers. The synagogue system then, as there was a diaspora, like it spread everywhere else too. So Jews would have synagogues where they could worship, especially during the period when the temple was destroyed after 70 AD, right? Like there was no temple, so they had to rely on the synagogue system. So
practical.
It kind of made sense in that it was a practical way to kind of ensure that you could have the pedagogy of learning the law. But even in the day of Jeremiah, if you read the book of Jeremiah, he's already complaining about the lying pen of the scribe and the scholar, which would be the proto-Pharisees, beginning to supplant the divine revelation and the word of God with the man-made tradition. So when Jesus in Matthew 23 says, the scribes and the Pharisees are hypocrites, they, follow the traditions of men over the word of God, he's not saying something new. He's actually just echoing what Jeremiah said to who would be the proto-Pharisees of his day. So there's a parallel there that I think if you're a Christian, that leads to the separation of Christianity and rabbinic Judaism in the first, second, and third centuries. There's a lot of debates that were going on amongst the church fathers and the rabbis in that period. So this is where you get the split between Christianity going off in this direction as what it sees as authentic spiritual Judaism versus rabbinic Judaism going in a different direction. The kind of stuff that Adam Green thinks that, that's all Christianity just is the same. It's all the same thing, right? It's a giant conspiracy, which absolutely makes no sense given the fact that, rabbinic Judaism absolutely hates Christianity and has always persecuted it. You go to Israel right now, you get spit on if you try to go, to certain locations. They sprayed the poop cannons at the Orthodox Palestinian Arab Christians. So
I can't believe there's poop cannons. It's crazy to me.
And how can you buy one?
I remember we were talking about that on the Sam Hyde show, and like he hadn't heard of that. He was like, "Is this real? What is that real thing?" Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird the mental gymnastics people have to do to get to be okay with that.
It's unbelievable.
Like that officer
Yeah, well,
Tatum
it's
guy.
all
who's
it's
just
like everybody's a
We only
terrorist.
got spit on once. It's like, wow, congratulations, dude.
Right.
Wow, happy for you. You're living your best life. So, not that, I don't want to stay on this too long, but when we look at like, again, you came on, you dropped some bombs on us last time about Britain and their role in the Middle East. When we take a look at like Mecca and the Black Cube, and then, there's always these pictures of rabbis or whenever somebody who is Jewish starts feeling like it's getting a little too hot out there, they like to show them with the weird black hat on and the BDSM wraps around their arms. But it's a black cube. It's a black cube on their head. I mean, it seems to be prevalent, this thing that I'm not trying to stay on it too long or force you to say anything, but it just seems like there are clues of deeper meaning and loyalty.
I mean, definitely within the mystical side of Judaism, there's quite a bit of
Even
esoterica.
Islam as well.
There's magic, so there's sorcery. I mean, there is all of that stuff in certain strands and sort of secret traditions of Judaism. And I mean, even the top Kabbalist scholars like Gershom Scholem, who's one of the top Kabbalistic Jewish scholars of the last century, I read several of his books. He just says that all Kabbalah is like Jewish Gnosticism. So it's the same idea that the early heterodox Christian Gnostics taught, which is just sort of adapting elements of Far Eastern philosophy and Platonism. And it's not really Christianity or anything to do with Jesus. It's more of an esoteric mystery tradition. That's what Kabbalism is in Judaism. So that's correct. But again, you can have as many Judaisms as there are Jews. I mean, it's kind of all over the place. There's not one Kabbalah system. There's like all kinds of variations. So if you talk to one Kabbalistic rabbi, he'll have a totally different system from, I mean, I'll have some parallels, but another Kabbalistic rabbi.
Can that be applied to Christianity as well? With you have Protestantism, you have Catholicism, you have all.
Yeah, but that's different than.
No, I mean,
As
and I'm
many
not. I'm
as
not.
there
I'm,
are
just,
Jews.
I'm asking.
To a degree,
I'm not accusing. I'm asking.
Yeah, no. I mean, it depends. Like you could find some parallels there with like in the Middle Ages in the Latin Roman Catholic world, there were some mystics. There were people that were into Christian Kabbalah. There were versions of this. Sure, there were people who kind of combined. For example, in the Renaissance, Pico della Mirandola, a lot of those figures were into Renaissance magic, and they thought that you could combine Roman Catholicism with elements of occult magic and whatnot. So Neoplatonism. So yeah, you could find parallels like that. And to get back to your question about the cubes, I don't exactly know where Islam got the idea for a cube. It is interesting because the rock itself is just this meteor that's there, and then they sort of put a cube over it.
Crazy, dude. It's like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we know for sure that it's even the Muslims will admit like that's an old pagan site. That's where the Arab pagans would come, and there was something like 360 deities that you could worship at Mecca. And then when Muhammad
mix and match them. I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit
like
of that.
Mr. Potato God, right? Where you put your gods together. And then when Muhammad conquered that area, he turned it into supposedly worship of monotheism. But even within, as you pointed out, Islam, there's also a mystical tradition there as well, Sufism, that has all the same kind of esoteric Kabbalistic principles. And so whether it's Kabbalah or whether it's mystical Islam, which is Sufism, or mystical Christianity, they're all influenced by Neoplatonism and Kabbalism.
Neoplatonism, because I'm not that smart.
So we all know about Plato and Aristotle, right? So they're probably the two most famous Greek philosophers. And they, Aristotle was a student of Plato. Plato taught a mystical transcendent philosophy that the realm of the beyond and the transcendent is the real world. And we live in this kind of pale, dreamlike reflection of the real world. Aristotle said, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. We need to study this world and not worry so much about some transcendent realm. There could be that, and there's kind of some form of the heavens, Aristotle thought. But Aristotle was much more practical and more of a scientist, whereas Plato was much more of a kind of a mystical, theological speculator, right? So by the time of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century, in the Roman Empire and amongst debates with Christians and whatnot, you had a revival of this philosophy, and there were certain philosophers called Neoplatonists, Middle Platonists, or Neoplatonists. So this would be people like Plotinus or Iamblichus, and they thought that they could kind of combine Aristotle and Plato to come up with the right philosophy, and so it's just called Neoplatonism. And basically, it's, when you see that tree of the Kabbalah, like they kind of had a earlier version of that. So the Kabbalah is ripping that off. And if you look at something like the Porphyrian tree, Porphyry was another one of these Neoplatonic philosophers. They just simply thought that all of reality was kind of structured in these emanations or dimensions. And that became a popular pattern for philosophers, scientists throughout, the first 1,000 years of the Christian church, even to try to kind of categorize the world, that it exists in these in a hierarchical structure, the chain of being, something like that. So it became a very popular way to understand and study the world from a philosophical perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. So I want to get into Freemasonry. I've read many books about Freemasonry, the Scottish Rite and their role in the establishment of Israel. I have a very good friend, AG. He's a high-ranking Freemason in the Southwest. He wants to come on and talk Freemasonry. I'm totally open to it because I just like to learn about all these things, and we've had in-depth discussions on it. I don't want to join any group, but I always like to learn. And so he goes, everyone has this view of Freemasonry, and it's like really not that. He goes, it's like it's just a social club in a weird way, and I understand that. And so my whole thing was like, but like any group, dude, when you move up it starts to get a little dicey. It gets denser and denser, and you start running into psychopaths and alternative motives and secret society stuff and all that stuff. What is your thoughts on that? Because this whole thing is basically like it's just a club. We have our rules and we all hang out. He always tells me these great stories and it's very interesting. But because right now, a lot of people see Freemasons as the boogeyman. If it's not Zionist, it's the Freemason boogeyman. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, Freemasonry is in many ways kind of a Judaized view. It's had a lot of influence from Judaism and the Talmud and all that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of, some people call it Judaism for the Gentiles. So it's kind of an alternate version of what the Christian church was supposed to be or is supposed to be. Judaism, true Judaism, spiritual Judaism for the Gentiles. That's what Orthodox Christianity says the church is, as the new Israel or the true spiritual Israel. But you have this other alternate version of it, which arose out of the medieval stonemason guilds. And the reason that happened was that in Western Europe at that time, if you had the knowledge of how to construct a cathedral or something like that, that was a trade secret. You didn't want to give that to everybody. So people would join the guild to learn the craft of how to build, a cathedral. So it didn't begin as anything nefarious, but that model of trade secrets became a very powerful vehicle for other types of secrets. So you would have secret societies that could use that same model, that would utilize these trade guilds and networks and whatnot, that eventually became a vehicle for what's called speculative Freemasonry, which was more of a esoteric, experimenting with alchemy, that kind of stuff. All over the place. And this is like 1500s is when this really kind of kicks off. And eventually by, I think the mid 1500s, there were quite a few lodges throughout Europe that were called speculative Freemasonic lodges. So they kind of became havens for people that were practicing occultism or alchemy or things that were, in terms of the public Christian laws, seen as, heterodox, heresy, occult or whatever. So you could see then that it becomes a good vehicle for not just practicing the dork arts, as Theo Von says, but also a way to practice espionage. So secret societies also kind of overlap with espionage. That's why, for example, in England, Queen Elizabeth, as you guys know, her chief spy was John Dee, and he was a magician. He was and he created Enochian magic, which was probably just a way to do, cryptography and transmit spy messages or whatever. But you see with that, then the first 007, right, James Bond, is John Dee. He's a magician, so he's a court magus. He's involved in these esoteric societies, secret groups, Hermeticism, and then it eventually evolves into the establishment of the Grand Lodge of England in the early 1700s, and that becomes the spy network for the British Empire. So Freemasonry is very much connected to, at least for the British, espionage, British imperial spying. And there are, quite a few people who are really interested in studying alchemy, geometry, esoteric stuff. So it becomes all the above. Nowadays, I think probably younger generations don't care about Freemasonic lodges because, as you pointed out, for a lot of people, especially in America, like my granddad was a Mason, that kind of stuff. Like, it was more of a social club for dudes to get away from women and probably watch pornos or something, right? Like, but at the higher level, when you get up to like invited to the 33rd degree, that's an invitation only to DC, to the Grand Lodge in Washington, DC, where you're tapped for, more serious stuff. So probably your buddy, I have a family member who's a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, and he doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. Like, I started quoting to him. I have Morals and Dogma. I've read significant portions of it. I mean, there's a whole section, for example, on Neoplatonism. Pike says that real Christianity is a veil and a cover for Neoplatonism. There's a whole chapter on that. So I started talking to my relative about this, and he had no clue what I was talking about. So even people at the 32nd degree don't know anything. So I think you have to go, higher up into 33rd degree. You get invited to DC. That's when it gets more serious and ties into, the Queen of England and the Duke of Kent, right, are the official heads of global Freemasonry. What does that tell you?
Do you have to get invited in? Because we've been invited.
I was invited one time in San Francisco to...
No. You're going to get invited to the Blue Lodge. I'm talking about invitation to the 33rd degree. That's in DC. That's only for specific people who've risen to the 32nd degree. So if you've risen to the 32nd degree and they've profiled you and they don't think you're you're not useful, you're not going to be invited to DC for the 33rd degree.
Well, you brought up magic, and I want to get back to Britain and Zionism, but when you brought up magic, when you say magic, what do you mean by magic? Are we talking energy manipulation? Are we talking Doctor Strange from the Avengers? Because I think that's what it is. It's just not as obvious. Yeah, we're gonna have links to the book, man.
The publisher put Doctor Strange on the front. I thought that was it's funny you said that.
Oh, crazy, dude!
They stuck him on there. Well, I think that the idea, for example, if you look at Crowley's magic theory and practice, he says that magic is just simply the imposition of your will on the external world. So to achieve your will as an effect on the external world. So if you want to be, the I don't know, if you want wealth and power, then magic is you exercising your abilities to attain that. And then that could be anything from just doing performance art, like Lady Gaga, she conceives of her stuff as like magic or whatever, or witchcraft, or it could be you doing rituals, invoking deities to achieve that effect. So I think magic encompasses all the above. It's, imposing your will to get an achieved effect.
Super interesting. I think it's the Avengers shit, Doctor Strange shit, but not as obvious. Like Harry Potter shit. Just not as obvious. You can't, it's not like you see like, "Zoo," and the like lightning bolts come out of his hand, but there is energy manipulation going on.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like
That's a good way to put it.
like manifesting it. It doesn't happen instantly.
But I think it's even more concrete than that. Like, you know, we had the gentleman on who was talking about magic and in sports, because everyone thinks they're rigging it by telling a guy, and we've seen that in the NBA, but that's like, I think, basic bitch shit. Like Terry Rozier, dribble off your leg, you know, and he's like, "Oh, I can't dribble. I'm a professional basketball player," you know. But I think it's also like literally manipulating the energy of the game so things go certain ways.
Yeah, that's the attempt. That's definitely what the Magus wants to do. Whether they can actually do that and like what means they use to go about doing that is, I guess, the, you know,
well, what
up
is
for
home
debate.
field advantage? I mean, other than the bunch of people,
with energy, putting energy into the players. 100%.
You see it in every point spread. Home field advantage is worth 3 points. We know it.
Yeah.
In football. Yeah.
So you know, with the whole Charlie Kirk assassination, it's very famous that all these TikTok witches were putting curses on him, and you don't know what role that had into. You know, did that manipulate the energy to kickstart what's going on and everything that Candace Owens talk about right now, which is absolutely insanity right now. Absolutely insanity. So when we get into the British Empire, right? I've been telling people I think something's coming. I don't know how big it will be. I don't know how obvious it will be. But if you study the British Empire and the role in the destruction of China, the destruction of Russia, the destruction of India, India not so much having like millions of people die, but like just extracting wealth, creating these crazy Indians that everyone is like call center scammers and all that shit, you know, pooping on the sidewalk. You know, because these are the people who like study, who brought us yoga and all that stuff and meditation, and now they're like just shitting on the sidewalk, and you know that's because you see an extraction of wealth, which causes great poverty, and people start again acting like fools.
Their caste system has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't doubt if the British Empire had something to do with that. I'm not saying I don't know how long it's been around, but I wouldn't doubt if they created that. That's a great way to control people. Get this upper class completely buy them off through this fractional reserve banking. You control them, and then the poor just are left to survive and advance. And then you know, again, you get into Germany, and my belief of what the Nazis were. They were the German version of the Bolsheviks. They were like they had they thought they were doing well, but really they were being used and funded to destroy Germany from the inside. Everyone loses their mind. Well, they were fighting the Bolsheviks. I go, yeah,
exactly.
Because they're both controlled. The Bolsheviks and the Nazis were both being paid by the Bank of England to destroy their relative countries.
Yes, right.
And I think you're seeing that in America right now. I think you're seeing in America this progressive left, this Antifa, these woke people. These are the modern day Bolsheviks that are voting against their own personal interests. I don't know if we talked about it on here, but it's like the days of stopping chicks getting punched in the face is coming to an end. I mean, like, you know, we were talking about before. It's like, hey, dude, what? Oh my God, he's hit me. How did you vote in the last election? Who did you vote for? Oh, Mondani? Sorry, can't help you. I'm not going to get stabbed for someone who voted for this shit. I'm sorry about that, ladies. I'd love to help you. It's in my DNA, my wiring, protect women and children at all costs. But if you're voting for this, you know, fuck around and find out. And everyone's going to get mad at that, but it's just getting to that point. You can't vote for things and then get angry when you get what you voted for.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go down to the whorehouse and be like white knight and be like, stop sleeping with these women. Yeah. How dare you take her virginity? I mean, they're whores. Like,
but it's also like, dude, if we're on a train and some guy's going fucking nuts and they voted to get, like Mondani wants to get rid of the cops, right? You voted for that, ladies. You voted, and not the women on this show, because I'm pretty sure I know what they would vote for if they were in the area. But the women of New York City just voted in a guy that's consistently on record as he wants to get rid of the cops.
Muslim Fabian socialist ideology, which I've been talking about for years. I mean, we did a whole talk on the Fabian socialists. I think I came on here with you and talked about it. That's exactly what Mamdani represents. And people say, oh, you won't talk about Jews then if you're talking about Muslims. The Jews and the rabbis call Islam the broom of Judaism. I'm serious. Like, so they don't have a problem with Islam coming and destroying. They don't want it in Israel, but they don't have, that's why they created Hamas. That they don't have a problem with. In fact, they cheered on Jolani when he came to New York. You saw that, right? Like, so when Assad was toppled by Jolani, who was the previous al-Nusra guy, the al-Qaeda guy, he just went to New York and he was welcomed by the Jews in New York. So the ISIS al-Qaeda guy is brought to New York. Thank you for doing the CIA's and the Mossad bidding and destroying Assad and toppling Syria and destroying a bunch of Christian churches and making it basically into al-Qaeda now. So it's like so obvious once you see this that radical Islam is also utilized by the Israeli state. They talk about it openly. I mean, you saw the interview with the former head of Mossad where he's like, no, we're not going to help people who are, part of Shia Islam or whatever, but we will help ISIS.
It's actually absolutely insanity. It's absolute insanity. But do you see that game plan being installed in America?
This is the color revolution, right? So like our color revolution began, I think, with like Black Lives Matter and that kind of stuff. Same strategy as Bolshevik Revolution. I just had a intelligence expert woman, Dr. Olga Ravazzi, on. She's good friends with Colonel McGregor. We just did an hour-long podcast that I put up on my channel where we talked about how the CIA really mastered this strategy of utilizing Al-Qaeda and kind of crafting together with Marxism and organized crime was called the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army, which was a Al-Qaeda trained CIA created thing to destroy Serbia, Kosovo, et cetera, back under Clinton. And so she's an expert in all of that. She's also a Middle Eastern expert. And we were talking about how this is done. It's done like like a technique that's scientifically like perfected. So absolutely. I mean, they know how to craft and create these controlled dialectical groups. And I said, do you think this is the same, color revolution strategy that they're doing in America with Black Lives Matter and all that? And she said, absolutely. What they do is they study to find the tension points. So, for example, in the Ukraine, the tension point was between the sort of old Nazi ideology versus the Russian. So you can split Ukraine down the middle versus anti and pro-Russia. If in America, what's the classic issue in America? Slavery, race issues. So you split America down the racial divide. So you just hype up the already existing tensions in the regions, whatever those tensions might be. So that obviously everyone knows the tensions in the Middle East, right? So that's what they're doing. And that it is partly a Bolshevik strategy.
Jackson Hinkle did a great interview, and he interviewed a guy saying that basically in Nigeria, they're running this game plan again. They are funding Islamic jihadists. Locals have seen U.S. helicopters dropping off supplies to this Muslim movement, and they're blowing it up. It's wag the dog. So everyone goes, oh, they're killing Christians, which I'm against, because I'm Christian. I'm against that. But what's happening over there isn't what we're being told. It's the same thing as weapons of mass destruction. Because you know what they found in there? Natural resources, precious metals.
Do you remember Coney 2012?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I was at college, and that shit was everywhere. Posters all over the campus. I remember ripping them down. And it was being promoted by Campus Crusade, which was a Calvary Chapel evangelical thing that's actually tied into the Pentagon military industrial complex. Longtime supporters of Campus Crusade. That goes back to con men like Chuck Smith, Hal Lindsey, who wrote like Great Planet Earth. So all that like evangelical end time stuff, that's actually just American soft power for Israeli operations and foreign policy. So Israel will fund and put money into those goobers, right, to push oh, you got to support Israel because Gog and Magog is China and Russia. They're going to destroy Israel. All that is like just pure propaganda. And all the evangelical end time stuff, the dispensationalism, Christian Zionism, that's all part of that. And they were pushing that back at the Coney 2012 time for AFRICOM to go in and take, precious metals and rare earth minerals and resources in certain areas of Africa that they hadn't got to yet, under the cover of we're going to save the Christians and the evangelical Christians from Joseph Kony, this made-up warlord that nobody had even seen for years.
That is incredible. And then that guy took bath salts or went on a bender, dude.
Oh, you remember that guy? Yeah, that Jason guy who like got all tripped out and like stripped naked out in California.
And he was just on the corner in San Diego. He looked like one of those used car balloon guys. He was just in the middle of the street, just doing some buck naked, and like the Coney thing died right there.
Did he make money off that? Did he keep any of it?
I don't know.
Yeah, because what was it? What did he sell? It was like T-shirts or something, right? What was it?
I was looking up that video on my live stream a couple days ago, and it had 110 million views. Wow. They were promoting the shit out of that video, dude. That was like super propaganda. I remember Alex was going crazy over it at the time, and I read F. William Engdahl's book that was exposing a lot of that stuff at that time too, 2012, 2013, 14. So to me, that's kind of when everything clicked with like, oh, wait a minute, moral majority, evangelicalism, that's also a giant Pentagon bullshit thing. They utilize the missionaries in these other countries. That's part of espionage, et cetera. So a lot of that collapsed in my mind around that time.
It's literally, you said earlier, everything's fake and gay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just fake and gay.
I was looking at exit polls, by the way, from New York. It's only men and women 50-50 on Mamdani. The only major demographic that Cuomo scraped was white men. That was it.
But they were breaking down like the different
that's what I'm looking at,
groups,
right?
And like white women were the biggest.
Yeah, but
white
men
women
and
29
women,
to
50,
or like
50.
18 to 29.
It's 50-50 men and women. Now there were fewer male voters by a significant percentage, but the only demographic that Cuomo won was 46% to 45% white men. By 1 point, he won white men.
Now, do you think Cuomo was brought in to hurt Curtis or
Curtis Leo never won. No, he was brought in because he couldn't win.
Yeah.
People were sick of him.
Was that like a dead horse candidate? Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
exactly.
So they brought him in to push everybody to Mamdani.
Yeah. I mean, it's the old, the South Park bit. What is it? The turd sandwich and what is it?
I don't know.
God, what it's the two choices are. It's one's a turd sandwich and the other is some kind of
other
female.
turd sandwich.
No, it's like a.
What is it? Yeah, you're right.
It's like a. Is it?
You
it's
said
not
it
an
last
enema.
week.
It's a douche, a giant douche. A turd sandwich and a giant douche. That's it. Yeah. And that's what they had to choose from. And they chose the turd sandwich. So.
That's better than a douche sometimes.
So you're saying it wasn't mostly female?
No, it was an even split.
So I should retract everything I said.
By numbers, there were more females, but percentage-wise of the male voters, yeah, it was.
Oh, okay,
even.
I understand what you're saying.
Do they have the numbers for the Prop 50 as well?
Oh yeah, it was like slaughter.
Oh yeah,
and then
close.
I don't. This is the problem with the internet. Lying is acceptable. So lying about stuff. Someone said that people thought Prop 50 was about impeaching Trump. I don't know if that's real, but I know what was real was the major push behind that was Texas redistrict. So they gerrymandered. So they're like, if they're going to do that, we got to do that. And even though we're going to give it to the people that burnt down L.A. and Paradise and all that stuff, it doesn't matter. Again, the theory of hate is so much more powerful to rich kids than anything else. And if you just get punched in the face, it's a bad day. It's just a bad day. Just unlucky, dude. I got mugged at a gas pump, pumping $7 gas. Just unlucky. Just that day was a bad day.
Or how about in San Francisco when they tell you don't leave stuff in your car because they might break into it? What the fuck?
Yeah, you should have known, man. You shouldn't have left that there.
It's your fault, dude, because racism. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's so fucking mind-blowing.
Can't leave your bag in your backseat when SNAP benefits are expired,
It's so fucking crazy. And it's like everywhere. And it's just like, I mean, I would like to say it has to get worse before it gets better, but I don't know if on the other side of that is better.
Truly.
And so for me, it's like, how do you deal with it? Because that's what people who listen to the show, they're like, well, what do we do? I'm like, you got to look within, dude.
Well, I know people, I mean, and you're hearing it more and more that think we're headed towards civil war. I'd be interested to hear what Jay thinks about that. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I covered the propaganda that was in those movies. Again, you know, you had Leave the World Behind, the Obama produced movie, and then you had Civil War, Alex Garland's movie. And I went back and redid those this week because, you know, it really vibes well with the Podesta plan, with, as we said, this sort of color revolution, Bolshevik revolution model, where the propaganda is already telling you ahead of time, like, yeah, we are planning for this idea of carving up the country through the racial division. And, you know, the only thing I don't know is how they'll actually get all the 40 million people that have come here to do anything like physical or confrontational. I think it's difficult to get those people to fight. However, if a lot of these people get here and there are no more benefits and SNAP benefits and EBT,
how you do it.
Yeah.
Then maybe they'll get the civil, you know, unrest that they've been wanting. So it could come through that. It could come through, you know, cartels and gangs that have sort of, you know, set up networks already that are here that we just don't really know about because there's so many people that they can't keep up with. So there's a lot of different possibilities. I mean, the economy is getting just totally trashed,
Do you
right?
think
I mean,
the president could have a role in it if he decides to somehow continue being the president beyond this term?
I don't know. I mean, people talk about. I've been hearing that since the Bush era, right? Like, George Bush is going to institute martial law and be the president.
George Bush never played with the idea, though. I mean, to be fair, publicly, Trump loves to tease people, and you know, like, well, hey, I don't know. I mean, he did say, to be fair, that the idea of him running as vice president and then Vance stepping down is a little too cute for him. He said he wouldn't do that, but he said he had studied it. And there were ways to do it if he wished to.
I mean, yeah, it could be. I mean, he definitely has the ego to try to do it, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just a thing that I've heard ever since I was a kid. So I don't know. One
battle after another, by the way, is another one of these films that fits that narrative. It's about, you know, these left wing revolutionaries. And
is that the Leo DiCaprio one?
Yeah, the new PTA movie, Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah, and it's significantly, you know, I mean, it's just loaded with bullshit, but well, I've heard
it bombed though. It bombed.
It was good, but it was, and I think people kind of took it the wrong way because the revolutionaries are idiots, like they're dipshits.
Yeah, well, the ones here are dipshits.
Yeah,
too.
well, I know, but people were saying it's kind of glorifying revolution and the people on the left, but because they're the protagonists of the film, but they're really anti-heroes. I mean, they're all idiots. So I mean, so are the government people, which fits.
Well, it's my joke. Everyone's retarded.
Yeah, and everyone in that film is retarded.
So wait, to ask you, have you guys seen what's going on TikTok or like on social media where, so I don't know who it is, but BLM or the people that don't have EBT are setting up a day where they're supposed to go to Walmart and like raid it together at like from 6 to 7?
No,
I love that there's. It's like nothing says psyop more than scheduled unrest.
Yes, public. Exactly. Not like
right? It's like come here from 6 to 7 and pick something to burn down.
The cops totally won't be there.
Right? AstroTurf to the max, dude.
It's so fucking nuts. Let me ask you something. Then I want to get in your book before we wrap up. What is socialism to you? We hear this term thrown around a lot. You know, we go, well, where does socialism work? People always go, oh, it works in certain European countries that happen to be all white, but that doesn't matter at all. But what does socialism mean to you? Because the whole theory is like, taking over the means of production, all this stuff. And like, I'm a capitalist, but right now we're not in a capitalist society. We're in a corporate socialist society that's being told that is being branded as capitalism. I don't know. What is socialism to you? And do you think you could ever create a system that works? Nothing's going to work perfectly, but works better when you have psychopaths, insanely smart, beyond rich, like all these groups of people that can always manipulate the system. Do you think it's possible? So what is socialism, and do you think the idealistic system is possible with human nature?
No. So socialism has always been and will always be a tool of very wealthy people to extract and transfer wealth. That's it. It's a control mechanism that utilizes the principles of fairness, equality, things that everybody thinks sound good, but it's a swindle because ultimately, as the famous historian Oswald Spengler said, there is no socialist movement that has not been funded and promoted by massive capital. And that right there should, I think, cause you to pause and think, well, why would really rich people push the position that supposedly is the opposite of their position? And if you understand the actual origins, going back to Marx and Engels, and even before them, going back to Adam Weishaupt, the original modern communist, and the Jacobins and their philosophy of the French Revolution, ultimately it is an atheistic philosophy that is nihilistic and anti-human. And it also kind of there's layers and levels to it. So there's like this layer of, oh, we'll make it fair and everybody will have sort of an equal share of the pie or whatever. And then you get deeper into it, and it's, satanic banking elites that want to depopulate people. So at the end of the day, it is a satanic system. Marx was himself fascinated with Satan. He has poems that he wrote to Satan. There's a great book on this called Marx and Satan by Richard Wurmbrand. So that's ultimately what it is, and it's always been that. It's a tool and a technique for destroying cultures that very wealthy elite people utilize when necessary.
And so let's just for a second go, what do the rich kids think socialism is?
That's a good question.
What do you think they think it is?
A lot of the children of the elite wealthy families, for example, in Rockefeller's biography, there's a great chapter on Abby Rockefeller, who created Cell 16, which was the radical feminist, third wave era, basically terrorist feminists, believe it or not, out of Chicago University. And she put millions of dollars into third wave feminism and whatnot. And when she talks about what made her socialist or why she's into it, it's because she supposedly felt guilt and she was privileged and all this nonsense.
Yeah, that's always it, dude.
But it's not true. I don't actually think that really cunning elites have this guilt. I think that they're psychopathic and they see it as a pragmatic tool. I mean, maybe in Abby's case, she really did have something messed up because she seemed to hate her own femininity. She wanted to kind of be like a man. She wasn't trans, but she was one of those sort of butch lesbian types. So, she could have been abused. A lot of these people in these elite families are all messed up, and, the parents abused them. So that's why they have such a messed up, worldview. But I think probably a lot of the rich elite kids, I mean, some of them, like there used to be an article that was really, it's hard to find now, but it was in Rolling Stone, and it was the children of the Duke family. I think it's Duke Energy, which is a big mega, $1 billion thing. They were raised, abused as Satanists. So they, I think, would say, yeah, we support all this stuff because, fuck the public and fuck the rest of you. You should all die because we deserve to rule. So the really cunning psychopathic elite literally have a middle finger to everybody, and they think it's funny to fuck with everybody because they're evil. But I think there are some elites that, there was one of the Rothschilds' heirs that supposedly hung themselves. So a lot of these people are also kind of, suicidal because they've been abused. And then there's probably a segment that are, they actually do believe socialism, possibly. Maybe Abby Rockefeller did. I don't know.
An interesting, just a little side note, that Duke University was named after that family and was originally called Trinity, and because of the Holy Trinity, and they renamed it after themselves. It's kind of a little historical.
It's kind of crazy.
If you go I've been to Duke University campus, and if you go to their chapel, it's like esoteric occultic stuff in there.
Yes.
It's not nothing to do
Everywhere.
with Christianity.
Yeah,
at
I
all.
went to UNC. I was at Duke all the time, and yeah, it's creepy. I
I
mean,
remember there being something in there like
Duke. That's why,
that.
because they're dark arts, literally.
yeah, exactly.
Literally dark arts.
Somebody should find that Rolling Stone interview with the children of the Duke family where they talk about being raised and abused and being taught like literal Satan, like they were into Satanism
Yeah.
explicitly. Rolling Stone. I
It-
remember when I heard that, I didn't believe it. Somebody mentioned that. I was like, that sounds like extreme. And sure enough, I went and found the old Rolling Stone article where they talk about it.
Jeez Louise. Let's get into your book real quick. Tell us about it. Like, what are some of the things you added to your last books? And, you have a 1,000 pages on this subject. So I'm sure we have some amazing new tidbits and facts that I think people are going to be excited to read about.
Yeah. So basically, the publisher was like, "Hey, let's do a part 3. We might as well complete the trilogy." I think part 2 came out back in 2019 or 18. So it's almost a 10-year sort of project of collecting all these essays together, and then kind of, a lot of them I rewrote here. So I would say probably maybe 50 to 60% of this book is brand new, and everything else got rewritten. But there was a lot of things that I never got to in part 1 and 2. So I didn't get to like any of the big Marvel stuff, the propagandists in the Marvel movies. I didn't get to Christopher Nolan films. So there's a bunch of Christopher Nolan I wanted to do. And then I didn't really hit a lot of the feminist propaganda, Slay Queen stuff that Hollywood has been pushing hard. So I threw in about 60 pages of that. Everything from Mary Poppins to Mad Max, Furiosa, all that stuff is promoting a lot of like feminist, bad bitch stuff. Disney's Cruella, Wonder Woman. I mean, you don't think about that stuff being about that, but like Barbie. So I put Barbie in there. In the next section is a lot of independent B movies. There's a lot of actually Crowleyan themes, satanic themes in a lot of these B movies that we don't notice. And then I did a whole section on Hollywood horror trauma. True Detective season 1. That was all about a real evangelical church that was mind controlling, human trafficking, satanic ritual abuse. That was a real thing going on. So I did a deep dive analysis of True Detective seasons 1 and 2. A lot of classics that people wanted me to do. Donnie Darko, Prisoners, another ritual abuse film. Did another section on MK Ultra movies that are overlooked, like Brian De Palma's The Fury, Stephen King Firestarter, Dakota Fanning, Hide and Seek with Robert De Niro. A lot of weird stuff going on in that movie. Wicker Man, Hereditary, Midsommar, David Fincher's The Game, Fight Club, Tom Cruise.
God,
the
Fight
Game.
Club?
The Game too is an underrated film.
Yeah, I put The Game in there.
What's wrong with
which is
Fight
weird
Club?
because it's like,
What's wrong with
why
Fight
did I
Club?
not do The Game, all these years? Because it's exactly what we talk about in the reality behind the movies.
Yeah.
So it's like, I should have done The Game a long time ago.
Good one.
But yeah, The Saint, all of the Mission Impossible films, Hollywood Spies, all the different spies. We've talked about that a lot on here. I won't rehearse all that, but people don't know about all these famous A-listers that were spies over the years. So I had to throw that in there. And then we got into Antichrist and Apocalypse because I had never really done a good deep dive on, Rosemary's Baby and John Carpenter's Apocalypse films, stuff like that. Did you know, by the way, there's a little fascinating tidbit. Remember in The Rock, right, with Sean Connery, Nick Cage, when he's got the green balls?
Yeah,
of death?
it's like a nerve gas, right, or something like that.
Yeah, the nerve gas.
Yeah.
So it turns out this is from actual British intelligence historians, not from a conspiracy text, that the chemical weapons story that came out that Saddam had chemical weapons, the fake intelligence asset that made this up,
Yeah.
they literally made it up from the Nick Cage movie.
What?
I'd heard that. Yeah, it fits your thing too, dude.
It
Your
fits-
Nick Cage
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Nick Cage. Yeah, dude, that's the greatest bit of all time.
Yeah.
Nick Cage warns us about what they're doing. I mean, dude, he's a time traveling shaman. I've tried to tell
Exactly right.
everybody that.
Saddam Hussein was accused of possessing, weapons of mass destruction, gas balls of green balls of gas, death, whatever. Turns out this was all pushed by a made up story from British intelligence that they literally cribbed from The Rock. So also the FOIA documents, things that came out with regarding like Ben Affleck's relationship to the CIA. Like we know now that Argo was literally made in consultation with the CIA. You could say
it's official propaganda.
Affleck's basically just a CIA operative. A lot of these, what is now passe, like it's like this was, if you talked about this 10, 15 years ago, people said you were schizo. But The Exorcist, people don't know The Exorcist was actually written by the CIA. It's a CIA script.
What?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. In fact,
what's the mechanism?
William Peter Blatty, he did psyops in Vietnam for the CIA.
Wow.
And then
what is the psyop that they're pushing with that?
Fantastic.
so this took place during the Cold War, and the idea was, if you go back and watch The Exorcist, you'll notice like, why are these like you have communist socialist student protests going on in the movie. And so even within the film, it's like they're concerned about the possibility of people leaving religion. So why not scare the shit out of them with exorcism?
Yeah.
And so it turns, and I'm not an atheist.
So that
I believe
pushes
in
them
like,
farther out of religion.
say what?
Does that push them farther out of religion? Oh, they're like, look at these crazy exorcisms.
Well, the idea is to scare the shit out of people, to remind them that the devil's real and go back to church so that they don't turn to communism and atheism.
Fascinating.
For example, some of the work carried out by the Psychological Warfare Bureau, orchestrated by people like William Blatty and Tom Dooley, included staging Marian apparitions in Vietnam to support the anti-communist ideology. So extensive campaigns were carried out by the Catholic Relief Services and American psychological warfare teams to drive peasants south of the demilitarized zone by telling them, quote, "The Virgin Mary has departed from the north. Jesus and Mary want you to go south." I mean, that's literally what the CIA did in the Cold War
that is incredible,
psyops.
dude. I mean,
Isn't that crazy?
I think when people say everything's fake and gay, they really don't understand how deep that statement really is.
Exactly. Ed Lansdale, for example, he had a plan to stage a second coming in regard to Cuba to convince Cubans to return to Catholicism and not accept atheistic communism. Now, that doesn't make communists good. It's just like these people have no principles whatsoever. Like they'll do anything. So
why do they hate communism? I mean, obviously we know communism is a failed economic policy, but why?
Heads on spikes, their heads. I mean, that's how it ends up. If there's
So the
violent
elites end up, they think they die at the end?
it happened in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, that's incredible, dude. What an insane episode, dude.
Oh, and I found so that this is incredibly interesting that you brought that Rolling Stone article up. So it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Is it the poorest rich kids in the world?
Kids in the world. Yeah, it was in the October 12, 2013. I mean, I'm sorry, August 12, 2013 issue.
I found it on Rolling Stone, and it talks about the satanic stuff is still there. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh wait,
if you go to Rolling, if you type in poorest rich kids in the world, the Duke heirs, and it talks about. They talk about their stepmother encouraging them to read satanic texts, etc. I think it even talks about other things I can't mention.
So
if you control F Satan, it'll come up that they were taught, to read satanic texts and so forth. I didn't think that article was still available. That's crazy.
Well, I think it must not have been temporarily because all the stories I found that linked to it said it's not available online. It
was gone for a long time.
It must have,
because I used to try to find this article. It was from 2013.
How many things are gone from the internet that we don't know about that they deleted? We're like, before they see this.
Oh yeah, totally. A lot of articles and stories about satanic ritual abuse have been deleted and memory hold.
Funny how that works,
right?
Wow, great.
I will say, Jay, too. There's a film about Nuremberg coming out, a major where
about what?
Nuremberg trials.
The Nuremberg trials, where Goring is played by Russell Crowe. It's coming out this week. Actually, comes out
more propaganda.
Yeah, should be
More
interesting.
propaganda, guys. More trying to fucking convince you this thing is worse than it is. You know, it was.
I'll see it tomorrow and let you guys know.
You love to. You love to.
If you want signed copies of Esoteric Hollywood 3, you can get them at jaysanalysis.com in the shop.
I'm gonna buy the book, dude. You just blew my mind. Jay, thank you so much for working with us. Sorry we started a little late.
All good.
We appreciate it.
All good.
One more time, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Jay Dyer. You can find me on YouTube, Jay Dyer. You can find me writing Sam Hyde Show. We've done, I think, one full season of episodes. They're all pretty killer, pretty wild stuff. Especially the first one, Dear Elon, went mega viral. Had 25 million views, I think, or impressions on Twitter. So check that out at Sam Hyde's
He
profile.
moves tickets, dude. Do you ever go on the road with him?
I'd like to. But, if we do the thing in January, maybe I can come to Comedy Dojo and sort of
Dude,
Nice.
how far
perfect
away
my
from New
skills.
Jersey are you?
Huh?
How far away from New Jersey are you?
Well, there might be something happening in New Jersey in January.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
you've heard about
So
it.
if I'm up that way, I wouldn't mind trying to make my way into the
All right,
Comedy
dude,
Dojo.
I'm excited. This will be great. It's a great. I mean, I can't wait to tell people. We're just waiting for contract T's to be
Right.
crossed. and
Yeah, I
I's.
mean, we don't know, but I'm just saying if something happens in January, maybe. But yeah, like I'd like to do more of that. I love doing the live events, love doing impressions and all that. But anyway, so yeah, thank you for having me. You can find me also on the Alex Jones Show, usually on Fridays, 4th hour, and find me on X and Instagram under my name.
All right, buddy, you're the best. Let's break down the episode. Oh my God, guys! Jay Dyer came, dropped hammers. What do you guys think?
Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous.
Dangerous, but man, amazing, dude.
Amazing.
It's just amazing, just amazing.
I love that.
I was blown away, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Every book he had, I bought. Everything he mentioned, I bought it.
I love that he thinks it's a good idea to try to get us to read. Though. It's like,
I want to read. I want to read. Was something King. I bought that. Who's the guy that the episode that just dropped? He mentioned King Killing 33. I bought that, bro. It's only like a paper. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a
pamphlet?
leaflet. It's a pamphlet. It's about. It's the shortest pamphlet ever of a book to buy.
Well, sit down. Sit down, and you're done with the book.
You read it?
No, dude, it's dense.
Okay, it's dense.
Like
okay.
it's dense discussion, bro, on shit. 99% of the population would have no clue what they're talking about. You have to go deep and read it over and over and over again. It's really fucking nuts. It's nuts. But so I like to grab these books. I'm trying to read more.
not that I've tried, but is it like everyone says that Winnie Webb's books are dense? Is it something like that? Have you even opened that? Have you? Because I know you bought it. I know you got it.
Yeah, I got it in my room. I haven't opened it up yet. I just have a feeling Whitney. What's dense about it is the info.
Yeah, she talks
When I'm
about
talking dense, I'm talking words. Like it's not a natural conversation that you will ever hear in your life. It's like 2, 3
it
or
old?
4. Yeah.
it's old. Okay. Yeah.
But it's like really dense. I'm loving it. And of course, Dana loves opening to see what book I'm getting. And she just pray it doesn't have the word Hitler in it, which is going to suck for her when I buy that. The Hitler book. Why you got to get more Hitler books? I'm like, it's just an interesting topic, man.
Yeah.
So
It is. It's endlessly fascinating, the Second World War and Hitler and the rise.
and it's so crazy because it's like once something happens, it's like if something happens where that someone just barges through that door, we will all have a version of that
Yes.
that will be the most real version we believe, and it won't be the same version,
Nope.
right? And over time, as it gets told, that version will change. It's telephone, right? By the end, it's always like a black guy with a knife. That's how it always ends, right? Right? That's how it fucking ends. But it's like, it's a really interesting topic because it's like most people just want to live their lives,
Yes.
but there is a psychopath class that is constantly trying to kill all of us. all the time. Okay? And it's like it's so deep in how they operate. And it's so weird because like all they want is more money. And it's like, but you have all the money.
Yeah, I do think it's really about money. Like only about
No,
money.
I think it's about death and destruction.
I think so too.
For the
And
soul.
figuring out ways to ship death and destruction to different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's like it's a game.
It's a game. It's a dark, dark game.
You know, it's funny you mentioned too with the Second World War. I mean, there's shit that is in the official histories that still doesn't make sense. Like, so Hitler's top guy, like his best friend was Rudolf Hess, and he's a weird dude. Like he's weird, but he was with him, and they were in jail together. They went through the early
They
days
were
together.
they were in Tavistock together.
Yeah.
Tavistock.
Well, if you
excuse
believe
me.
that, yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah. I mean, there's some rumors about that painting being forged or whatever.
Okay, Johnny.
But irrelevant to the point that I'm going to make. And then, in the middle of everything, before the war is even properly like underway, Rudolf Hess does some training, gets in a plane, and flies to England on his own, and crashes in a field, claiming that he had made some arrangements to go make peace with England. And then the English are all like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. And they put him in jail and interrogate him. Nobody sees him for years. And he's the last one to die. They never let him out of jail. He dies under suspicious circumstances in like the late 70s, early 80s. Hanged. The guy who could barely, like, he's like, they show him when there's pictures of him, like right before he died. And, I mean, he's clearly too old to get up and like hang yourself. And they were worried that he was going to talk about possibly this is one of the theories about what happened to him, about why he flew to England. Because, I mean, it's one of the weirdest things about the war.
Is there any
this
I
guy
never knew that.
was one of the top Nazis and just gets in a plane and flies to England on his own during the war. And then he has a story. You know, he was there to talk with members of the royals to negotiate peace. And you're telling me he does that without the English like saying, "Hey, dude, time to wrap this shit up," you know? And I think it was like 41 or something. So he was sidelined for the rest of the war. And this was Hitler's number one guy. And Hitler, of course, said he felt betrayed and denied it all. But it's so strange, dude. And that's in the official history.
And if you're England and you want Hitler to rise and you want Hitler to destroy Germany to give us Israel, why do you want Hess to arrive?
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it sounds. I've always suspected that there were factions in the British government that wanted it to happen, and they lost. You know, they wanted to make peace at that point, and they lost.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's people that are like, "What the fuck are we doing?" And then there's the psychopaths from the secret society who are like, "Oh, dude, it's got to happen. It's got to happen." I mean, when the Scottish Freemasons were like hugely behind the formation of Israel, you know, that's the whole thing.
And that prison he was in, Spandau Prison, after the war, the way they agreed to do it is there would be different wardens and different guards. They would alternate between the Allied countries. And that went on until the 70s. He was the last guy there, and they had the Russians, the Soviets, the French. They would each go on like change.
He was in prison when he died?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he was in
yes.
He was the last guy still in prison at 90 years old or whatever the hell he was.
Whoa!
The only one there. One Nazi, a whole prison for one Nazi. That's how big the secrets that fucking guy had were.
Whoa!
That he was in prison at
Is
the
there
end.
a book on it that I can buy and not read?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's the most compelling story of the war. And they say he's crazy. You know,
Why wouldn't
that's
they
what
kill him? Like they did.
They
They probably wanted to shut it down.
I think
They're
they
like,
did.
"Can we end this guy?
Yeah.
Can we shut this down?"
Yeah, well, also, yeah, it's because they're spending probably millions of dollars
him alive,
to
yeah.
keep this prison going and rotating in these guards. You know, and he would say there's talk about how he hated when the Russians were coming in because they were stricter because the Russians. If anybody has
They hate
a
it.
real gripes with the Germans, it's the Russians. I mean, they were harder on the Russians than anybody, and they were always like rougher on him toward the end. You know, he would get less food from them, and they'd make him go to bed early and stuff like that. But it's just
What
crazy,
an
dude.
existence. You're trying to
Crazy.
bring peace, and they just punish you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and even the other
And that
Nazis.
was before the war?
Oh, it was in like
41.
41, I
41.
think it was. Let me see. Okay. So his flight, he died in, I'm sorry, it was even later than I said. He died in 87. So that prison was going until 87, dude. I was alive when that prison
Oh
was
my
still
God.
going.
Were you even born yet?
Yeah,
No.
it was,
No.
let's see. It was, I think it was 41. Let me see. Hold on, I'll just read the account from
87. I was still in school.
Okay,
He's
here
probably watching Chips and fucking
attempted peace mission. As the war
different
progressed,
strokes.
that was a great show. I used to watch it in syndication. As the war progressed, Hitler's attention became focused on foreign affairs. Let's see. On August 31st, 1940, Hess met with Karl Haushofer, who told Hess that he believed King George VI was opposed to Churchill and would dismiss him and send him to Canada at the first opportunity. Haushofer spoke of his belief that it was possible to make contact with the king, and so this is the purported reason that he flew there. Hess wrote a letter to his wife on the 4th of November, 1940, and then he began.
You know what I hate about that shit?
Yeah.
Is all these guys put their family in such peril.
Dude, they fuck their family. Yeah.
They fuck their family.
The only honorable
get your
guy.
family out of fucking the country before you do that shit. It's like that Russian doctor who told everybody about the Russians doing steroids. He just abandoned his family.
It's crazy, dude.
It's the most
The
selfish
only
shit.
honorable guy was Rommel. Like Rommel had some probably not even firm connections with the plot to kill Hitler, and they came to him and said, "Hey, dude, you can go have a little trial. You can go appeal to Hitler directly, or we'll just take you out, kill you, and then your family will be guaranteed to be protected. No show trial or anything." And he chose that and like protected his whole family. He had a hero's funeral and everything. He's like one of the few guys.
But don't you think you're gonna win? Like in your eyes, I get what you mean. Like, why am I gonna
Yeah,
take
but
my
you have to
family?
go if this doesn't go well and it's possible.
No, yeah, of course, yeah.
Like if my family's fucked.
So he begins training on this special modified plane.
What
with
was
like
that?
these
Real
extra
quick,
fuel
Johnny.
tanks. Yeah, go ahead.
What was Homeland? You remember Homeland?
Yeah.
The TV show?
Yeah.
How that guy tried to do all this.
Brody,
He was like,
yeah.
Yeah, and then his family was just fucked.
Well, he was brainwashed though. Remember, because he had been captured and
For a long
tortured,
time,
and
yeah.
like
He came back.
brainwashed him. He was like an MK Ultra, like kind of, but the other side doing it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So he learned from this chief test pilot on this special plane how to fly. They added some extra fuel tanks on there, and then he checked the weather reports. And on the 10th of May, 1941, he departed from an airfield in Germany, and flew across.
And landed?
Well,
Landed.
he didn't land very well. It was a little bit of a wreck. But there's talk of in Scotland, the radar picking him up and being like, who the fuck is, like, what is this? You know? I mean, it was just it's one of the most inexplicable, bizarre things ever to happen in history. And I love reading about it. It's one of my favorite things.
No, it's like, dude, when you got millions of people watching and you get like, let's say 100 negative comments, that's still pretty fucking good. Russell Crowe, I'm doing this movie Johnny's gonna watch. It's about the Nuremberg trials, and it's totally gonna be accurate.
He sure is there. Yeah,
it's totally gonna be accurate. And
it's more about Goering, Hermann Goering, and kind of his relationship with, because he thought he was like outsmarting all the guards and stuff, and he wasn't. He died.
All right.